Colourpop has just come out with their Valentine's launch, so we're going to go ahead and talk about all of the pieces in this collection. We have a palette. Perhaps what I was most excited for are the 3 Supershock blushes. There's 4 eyeshadow sticks, and they come in duos of 1 matte and 1 shimmer. And we have 3 pink glosses. I gotta say, I always really look forward to this launch every year. There's just something very cutesy about these collections, so I hope that if you are looking at it, that I might be able to help to give you some insight through some detailed swatches and looks. Okay, let's go ahead and start off with the eyeshadow palette. This is the Hard to Get palette. This has 12 pans. It retails for $18, which I think is a pretty fair price. They do have some palettes of this size that get into that $20 price range. There's no pressed glitters in here, which I really do appreciate. And I mentioned this when I talked about the Bella Beaute Bar Morally Gray palette. I really like pink and gray. So I am a fan of this color combo. Here is what the shimmers look like swatched on my fingertips and on the back of my hand. I was expecting the first couple of shimmers to maybe have a little bit more pizzazz, but I do always really like the inclusion of a few of the semi-sheer shades and iridescence. I love using them as toppers. Here's what the whole palette looks like swatched on my arm. I am happy to see some good depth in here, especially when I have lighter mattes. I love having deeper mattes to be able to create some smoky looks and looks with more definition in general. As I mentioned when I was swatching, I think a few of the shimmers in here could have been a little bit more exciting, but I still felt inspired to create looks with this one. Okay, by far my favorite part of this collection is these Supershock blushes. I don't think that I've played around with Supershock blushes before. These are the standout from the collection for sure. I like that they're not ultra sparkly. They're kind of like blush toppers, so they're definitely not the type of sparkle that you get in some of the Supershock shadows. They're more wearable for the cheeks. This cool tone pink really stole my heart, and I also really like using these as an eyeshadow, which you can see in my demo. If you have a lighter skin tone, I still think you can enjoy this deeper Supershock blush, but you may prefer using it as an eyeshadow as opposed to a Supershock blush. Personally, as someone who has medium deep skin tone, I really love this deeper shade as a blush. And here is what all 3 shades look like swatched on my arm. I also forgot to mention, yes, I really love the heart-shaped packaging of these Supershock blushes too. The next piece of this collection we have is the 3 glosses. You have 1 sparkly gloss and 2 that don't have sparkle. I think these are pretty glosses by far. My favorite is the sparkly gloss. I also want to mention that the 2 non-sparkly glosses, I just feel like they're a little bit close in shade. I would have really loved to see a deeper shade, similar to the shade of the deepest Supershock blush. Imagine a beautiful monochromatic moment with shades like that. And if you're trying to tell what the difference between these 2 non-sparkly shades is, there's one that has like more of a bubblegum pink look to it. It's a little bit warmer toned, and the other one is more of a cooler toned gloss. Honestly, I would recommend applying them super sheerly if you're going for one of the non-sparkly glosses. They can be a little bit patchy to apply if you're trying to build them up. But again, I think the packaging on these is super cute. Just by far, my favorite is that sparkly gloss. Okay, and the last part of this collection that we have is these shadow sticks. Each of these come as little duos. So the first duo, you have these lighter, cool tone shades. And as you know, I've done a dedicated video on the multi-chrome shadow sticks that are now permanent to the line that were in the Winx collection. I actually really like the multi-chrome shadow sticks. It's just that these shadow sticks, they aren't like particularly standout to me. I think what it is for me is that they're just not as impactful as I tend to like to go for. That lightest shimmer is really pretty though, and I think that that is a great shade to use as a highlighting shade, especially like on the inner corner, on the brow bone. They do have a very pretty sheen to them. I just wish that they were sold individually. But another use that you could have for those mattes is using them as an eyeshadow base. And for sure, if you're going for low effort eyeshadow looks, these are a good option. Okay, for my first look, I really want to play around with some of the softer and the deeper tones together. I think that's one of my favorite parts about this palette is that despite having some of these softer pink tones, you have the deep tones. I think the contrast between those lighter and deeper tones is beautiful. So what I really want to do is a smoky eye with a pink. So starting off with this light pink here, I'm just going to put that all over the lid. And then it's more like in the outer corner, I'm going to build up a bit of a transition. But I really like also how this is showing up on me. This is a beautiful kind of pastel pink. And I especially like wearing pastels when I have a nice contrast, a deepening up shade or in a halo or something like that. Now I'm going to just take a slightly smaller brush and sweep a little under the lower lash line, just kind of repeating the same shades that I have on the lid. And remember how I said I really enjoy the Morley Gray palette from last year? That's one of the palettes from Bella Beaute Bar that was limited edition. I just think that those two palettes, this one and Morley Gray, are going to pair so well together because that was a pink and a gray color story as well. Really enjoyed that palette. I love the combination of pink and gray. Now to just build up a little bit of depth in the outer corner, I'm going to go in with this gray here, kind of slate gray. It's called Maybe Next Time. So ultimately I want it to use that black shade, but I don't want to go straight to that. I just want to build this up a little bit before going in with that black shade. Actually, it's more like a black matte with sparkle, with pink sparkle. I'm curious. Most mattes with shimmer show up more like straight mattes when you apply them and blend out that shimmer. I'm curious how that's going to look on the eyes. I added a little bit of that gray to the lower lash line here, just in that outer corner. I am thinking of going in with this really deep kind of taupey gray there, just to further intensify this outer corner a little bit before I go in with that black shade. This is another shade I think is just a great outer corner shade. Like I could use just that, not the black, and have so much depth, which I love. I love palettes that have more than one deep matte. Also just nice to have a blending shade when you have shades that deep. Okay, now with a very light hand, I'm going to go in with that black shade. That is so pretty. I am going to add a shimmer at the end, but right now I'm just doing all of the matte work and then we'll leave the shimmer for the last part. Okay, now I've added the black to the outer corners of both eyes. I did go back in with a couple of these gray toned mattes to just blend out the edges. I don't see any shimmer in this matte with shimmer, so it reads like a black matte. It was fairly okay to work with. It's not like the easiest black matte that I've ever used, but that's okay. It did the job. And now we're gonna go in with this shimmer, Sweet Talk, and just use that as my lid shade because I really do like the contrast that we have between that is a really pretty duochrome. Of like you get some blue and some purple in there. And that is also going to be a really pretty highlighting shade. So I am going to put that on the brow bone as well, on both sides and on the inner corner, because I think that's a really, really pretty shade. And maybe just a little bit out here as well. Added a little bit of Urban Decay's Smoke to the waterline. I would say that this is like a near black. It's a gray black. So it goes perfect with the eyeshadow that I have in the outer corner. Now I'm going to use this beautiful Supershock blush in the shade Feelings Mutual. I think that the tone of this pink is just going to match really well for this look. And you know, it does have a little bit of like a cushiony texture, so you can totally blend it in with your finger. I actually think you get a better initial application with your finger, and then you can, you know, either blend it in with your finger or blend it in with a brush. But I would recommend, you're not going to get as much product or have as much control over the product if you would apply it initially with a brush. So, because I did try initially with a brush. Okay, and finishing off the look with this beautiful sparkly gloss. Now I did put a little bit of lip liner on. I used the lip liner stain from NYX that I'm super obsessed with. Again, because I just felt like the cool tone would go really well with this look. I love how sparkly this gloss is, and this is by far my favorite gloss. I think there's a little bit too much similarity between the other two pink glosses. I think they're pretty, but I would have loved to see one that had a little bit more depth to it. That's the main thing, but this gloss is perfect, and it is a beautiful topper-like kind of shade. Okay, now that we've had a chance to do swatches of this entire collection, play with everything, try everything on, let's close up with some rapid thoughts. Let me tell you first about what my favorites from the collection are. I think by far my favorite is the Supershock blushes. I think it's been quite a while since I tried a Supershock blush. I can't even remember if I have. I know I've tried the Supershock highlighters and eyeshadows. I think I must have at some point, but they are really beautiful. They are basically like blush lighters. They're not really sparkly, which I really like. I think a lot of people will get on with the texture of these, and I think that all three shades are very versatile. So even for me with, you know, a medium deep skin tone, I like the lighter shades, especially they have more of a highlighting effect, but you know, I think that these are beautiful. Definitely my favorite piece of the collection. My next favorite piece is the sparkly lip gloss. I already kind of gave you what my thoughts were. I think that there should have been one deeper shade, but the sparkly gloss is perfect. And the other two, I don't know if I'll get so much use out of. They're pretty shades, but I would definitely have to wear them with a deeper liner. And honestly, I'm just nuts about this sparkly shade, so it's probably the one that I'm going to be using the most. The next thing that I enjoyed from this collection is the palette. I like that there's not any pressed glitters in here. I've already told you I like the pinks and the gray tones in here. I think that this is a really fun color story and one that you can definitely get a lot of looks out of. I think if I would have done another look, I would have done a halo with a really bright halo eye using this this hot pink here, and then maybe this really pretty shimmer in here called Booked and Busy. Let me just swatch it, by the way, so that I can show you. But that is really sparkly and pretty. I think I would have used that in a second look. Something I want to mention is that you get a lot of kick up from these mattes, especially the deeper mattes. You got to do your eyes first, because I had to do some base touch up when I was doing my look. So just something to keep in mind. If you're going to use this palette, do your eyes first. And then last but not least, we have the shadow sticks. Those shadow sticks only come in duos. I do wish that you can buy them individually. I would have, probably picked up the light shimmer. I just don't think that I'm going to get a ton of use out of those lighter mattes. They're pretty. I might use them as eye bases. But I am a very big fan of the multi-chrome shadow sticks. And I think these are nice, especially if you're going for something quick and easy, but they're not super high impact. So just something to keep in mind there. You do get more impact from the multi-chrome ones because they're so glowy and shifty. Now that I've had a chance to go through everything, I would love to know what you think of this collection. Of course, we already have a sneak peek for Colourpop's next collection, which is a Twilight collection. I am excited to play around with that one and do some looks, but I always get so excited about the Valentine's releases. I think that on the whole, they are one of my more favorite collections that Colourpop comes out with each year. As always, I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.